Nutrition Services Budget Basics. Tonight's presentation will provide information on the Nutrition Services budget. This item is for the board's information and discussion.
Good evening.
Good evening, President Logan, Vice President Rohde, Superintendent Thompson, and members of the board. Feels like we've been on a 5-month dating break. I'm back. Back for 7 months. No. So, as an opener tonight, we wanted to take an opportunity to talk a little bit about nutrition services as it relates to how the budget for nutrition services works. So you were presented in January some information related to our nutrition services program, but related to one of the board requests and just some of the nature of the questions that came up during that presentation, we thought we would spend just a little bit of time tonight talking about how the Nutrition Services Fund actually operates. So as you know, our nutrition services programs serve a wide variety of students, serve almost 5 million lunches per year, almost $2 million of breakfasts served last year. 31 elementary schools have the fresh fruit and vegetables program. They just do tremendous work in this area, and it is no small operation. But what you may not be as familiar with is how the Nutrition Services Fund gets its revenues, how it expends funds, and what it needs to basically prepare for each school year as far as an ending cash balance. So we just, from a very, very high 50,000-foot view, want to talk about how this fund operates. So the Nutrition Services Program funding is governed by Policy 7400. In that policy, there is an AIP number 9 that states it is the annual objective of the Board of Education that the total nutrition services program be financially self-sufficient. Annual expenditures are expected to be balanced with revenues from federal, state, and local sources. What this means is revenues that are derived from the service of meals have to be able to cover its expenditures, or else it is basically in violation of our own board policy. And we do not transfer funds into the Nutrition Services Fund. It is not supported by any other district fund other than by the indirect support of, say, custodial services or clerical services, just like any other program with the district is supported. The district can and does charge the Nutrition Services Fund, however, for some of those indirect costs which cannot be easily separated out. So utilities, telephone services, trash, those kind of services. And I think our indirect rate is around 14% on the Nutrition Services Fund. So kind of looking at where the revenues come from in this fund, we get just a little bit of state aid, about $200,000 in state aid into nutrition services. We have about it's 16.8% is local sources, and by local sources, we're talking about the fees that are paid by parents for meals, interest that the cash balances in this fund actually earns, catering services performed by the Service Center for district activities, and the SSC cafeteria, which is which does have charges for employees. So, but those are again a very small section of revenues that go into nutrition services. The bulk of the funding in this particular fund are federal revenues, and they're reimbursements. So we serve the meals, and then we file a report to get reimbursed back those at a rate depending on if it's a breakfast, lunch, or a snack, and if it's a regular lunch program or breakfast program, or if it's part of our child care program. So there's slightly different rates depending on the program that we serve. But 82.3% of the revenues in nutrition services are federal funds. So that bucket of revenues, federal, state, and local sources, has to cover food costs, labor, supplies and equipment, and still leave an ending balance that's strong enough to support food purchases so that we don't have to fund it in advance for the following year. And the Nutrition Services Fund for several years, well, in my 10 years of being with the district, has never even come close to being out of balance. The staff in this area do a tremendous job of making sure that every program they put into place is self-sufficient. The revenues generated by those programs, less the expenses that they incur, we have an ending balance. And that's why it's so very important that every single program be looked at, because it needs to fall within this formula. Revenues, less expenses, leaves some sort of ending balance that can be used to support that next year. So when we look at the addition of new programs in nutrition services, we are concerned certainly with, is it good for kids? But we're also concerned with, can it be sustained financially? Can it be managed within the available resources the district has, or do we need to look at expanding, and can we expand it and still meet that basic formula? And can our other labor forces support those expanding programs, such as custodial and clerical help and facilities and all the other areas that get involved indirectly with nutrition services? So it's kind of a chicken soup of ingredients that go into each one of those. And I didn't mean that food analogy so literally, but all those pieces have to come together and have to be analyzed in order to determine, can we take that next incremental change, leap forward in serving meals to kids. So that's a little bit about how nutrition services operates related to funding. I know we owe the board some additional information on specific costs, but I did want to kind of preface some of that information with this presentation. And any
We do have a few questions. Julie?
I'm trying to understand the detail of the reimbursement here. Can you explain these two little?
Sure. So when we serve let's focus on the lunch. If we serve a free lunch, we're going to get $3.64 in federal reimbursement for that free lunch. If we serve a reduced lunch, we're going to get $3.24 for that lunch. If it's a paid meal, we get 64 cents on that lunch. So all of that information, that's why the nutrition services tracking program has to be pretty robust, because all of that tracking needs to occur so that all of that data can be submitted, and it goes up through KSDE. Funding comes back to us from the federal government through KSDE on a regular basis. So it's the type of meal and the type of student it's serving determines the rate of reimbursement.
And then that's how much
Right.
money this reimbursed.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you. That was clear.
And yeah, that's on the left side are the breakfast, lunch, and summer program rates. On the right side is our child care program reimbursement rates.
Okay. Stan?
Susan, first off, congratulations on your award from the Wichita Business Journal. It does take a great CFO in order for a school district to progress. And so I wanted to thank you for your energy and your efforts in this thing. And I appreciate how responsive you've always been to the board. I'll give you that compliment, and then I'll have to apologize. Probably should have given you this question ahead of time.
I'll just say I don't know, and I'll have to get
Okay.
back to you.
I apologize. I should have got this question to you ahead of time, but I bet you have it though. If you took the total amount we took into spend on nutrition and then divided it, and that includes all expenditures, and divided by the amount of students we have, what does it come to per student?
So our budgeted revenues, do you want that before or after the carryover cash?
After.
Okay. So our total budget in nutrition services is $34 million, divided by 48,000 students. I'm not going to do the mental math, sorry.
One more time.
If you just take $35 million divided by 48, 49,000, 50,000 if you want even numbers, students.
700 a student, sound right? And then of that $700, 82% of that is paid for by the federal government.
That's our federal reimbursement revenues.
Sorry,
Mhm.
I should have said it that way. Sorry. So about 581 of that 700 is paid for the federal government.
Right, and if we weren't serving meals, the additional dollars that even the local, and again, that just, the fund wouldn't exist. It's not like with
Right.
funds there could be utilized for another purpose.
Right. Okay, thank you.
So, and just so you know, we do, the cost breakdown, we spend about 48% on food, 39% on labor, and a little over 12% on supplies, equipment, those type of things.
Could you say those numbers again?
Sure. A little over 48% is food costs. 39% is labor costs. 12.6% is supplies, equipment, and other miscellaneous.
Again, thank you.
Okay, Ben?
Dr. Thompson, so we purchase equipment, food service equipment through this fund fairly regularly, replace old equipment, and maintain existing equipment. If hypothetically we needed to do a capital build out of a kitchen or something, what kind of funding mechanism would we be able to use for that?
Well, if you're looking at building out spaces to be able to accommodate the food and the folks and everyone else to be able to feed everyone, is that what you're asking? Well, we've kind of looked a little bit at approximately, we probably need about 35,000 square feet. So that means, this gentleman here, I think he could tell me what is it about, how much it is a square foot?
The building would be about $7 million just for a shell. No fixtures, no bathrooms, no sinks, just the outside and the floor that you walk on, and a couple of doors to walk in and out of. And then you'd have all the material that would go in that.
Yeah, he's an expert in that kind of area, so I thought he'd have a better answer than I. But that's pretty much what we would need to be able to feed everyone of that magnitude, 50,000 students, to be able to do that.
I have a question.
Ron?
I pressed it twice, sorry.
That's okay.
So
I
it just
can take
leads
it
me to thinking, when the food service building was built, what was the population? We were like maybe in the 20,000, 30,000 range?
I'm gonna let him hold up some fingers. What was that built for?
It was built in the mid-70s to serve 13,000 lunches.
13.
There wasn't even a breakfast program at the time, and we're at approximately 50,000 equivalent meals a day.
You might repeat that.
Okay, so when the school service center was built for the nutrition services portion of that facility was built, it was built to serve about 13,000 students. And that was not, and they were not at that time serving breakfast, nor were they serving any of the supper programs. And so now we're at a time where we're doing 50,000 meals a day. And so we are crammed in that space to just do what we are doing, which is serving breakfast, lunch, and some supper. So if we was to expand any further, we would really significantly need to build out.
Thank you.
Ben?
I guess I had an add-on question, more like, so if we needed to do this hypothetical, if we decided we wanted to do this hypothetical build-out, would it come from nutrition services funds, or would it come from capital, or would it come from
Well,
something
$7 million
else?
couldn't just come from nutrition services.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
you would definitely have to supplement that some kind of way. So you have some capital dollars, which you are behind in your maintenance, so you would want to tap into those dollars. So we would have probably very limited access to funds to be able to build out to that significant cost.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm seeing no other comments, so thank you very much. We appreciate it. Next item.